Good morning.
Hey, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right. Grant, are you here?
Hey, Dennis. Yeah, I'm here.
Good. All right. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Good.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. Hopefully everything is working here with any luck anyway, right? Well, hello, everybody. Hope everyone had a good evening and a good day yesterday. Appreciate you you tuning in. This scene behind me is New Bern, North Carolina, which is a really cool place. If you ever get a chance to go, it's a sailboat community and other things. It reminds me personally of Annapolis of about 30 years ago, Annapolis, Maryland, where I used to go quite often. So if you wondered where that is, that's where that is. Okay, so let's try this here. And okay, now can everyone see me full screen? Is that how it looks right now? Okay, good. All right. So we've been using a lot of material from a company called Techstars, or an organization called Techstars. And if you get an opportunity to learn a little bit about them, I suggest it's a good idea. They're international, but mostly U.S. in their scope, and they are very nice to let us use their curriculum because when the pandemic started, like us, they had to figure out how to go virtual, and they had one of their accelerators happened to be virtual, and that guy was very generous, the director of that program called Techstars Anywhere. But they're really good. They do a good job, and they're pretty successful. Their companies right now have a market cap of around $30 billion, and that's the share. They take a share in every company that participates in their thing. They give each company $100,000, and they get a percentage of that company, and that's kind of their business model, how they function. Today, we're going to hear something from another leading group, and it's called Y Combinator. Y Combinator is actually about 10 times larger than Techstars in terms of market cap. They're a little bit of a different animal. They invest $500,000 per participating company, but they only have one location, as far as I know, in the Silicon Valley area. And if your company selected, you have to move there for the duration of the accelerator. So it's a kind of a hardcore group, but they, in their group of companies, they have funded people like Airbnb, Dropbox, et cetera. And the market cap of their companies, I think, is over 400 billion right now, just to give you some idea. So not that means anything other than these people have been doing this sort of thing for a long time. And they tend to use people who have been successful entrepreneurs in their system. They actually bring back in to be instructors, which is a little bit different than Techstars in that sense. So almost everybody who does a presentation at Y Combinator, generally speaking, has been through it themselves. So today we're going to hear from Adora Chung, who is a Y Combinator partner, multiple entrepreneur, although she looks about 12 years old, so I don't know how many she's done, but she's going to talk about how to prioritize our time, and I think you'll find it helpful. It's only about 20 minutes long, so we'll talk about it after we watch it. So hang on there. That share. All right.
As Kevin said, my name is Adora. I'm one of the partners at Y, and I'm going to talk about how to prioritize time. Time, as you know, is precious, especially when you're working on a startup. Time burns money, and money is the very basic thing that keeps a startup alive. Not to be too philosophical about it, but even if your personal burn is super low, you can eat ramen days on end, which I don't suggest, and you don't have to pay yourself for a very long time. There's always a high opportunity cost to doing your startup. So it's super important to use your time the best way possible to maximize your startup's chance for success, which means you need to be really good at identifying and prioritizing tasks that are going to be the most impactful for your startup's progress, which I've noticed after going through thousands of weekly updates from startup school founders that a lot of founders are not doing this well. So hopefully this will be helpful. Let me first preface all of this by defining what time I'm talking about. So obviously there are 24 hours in a day, and I'm not here to tell you how to allocate those hours across your startup versus everything else that is important to you: sleep, family, friends, hobbies, and so on and so forth. Everyone has different situations, so it's hard for me to, from up here, give you good generic advice on how to allocate your time across these things. I'm just going to assume you're doing what's best for you. Whether it's 2, 6, 12 hours a day that you decide to work on your startup, it doesn't matter to me for the purpose of this lecture. I just want to help you figure out how to spend those 2, 6, or 12 hours that you've decided to allocate your startup in the best possible way. All right, so when it comes to things to work on your startup, my guess is that you already have something like a task list in which you put new ideas on to eventually work on, and you update that very frequently. So let's start from there, that you have a task list of things to do. First, I want to make a real clear distinction between real and fake startup progress. This is the easiest way to classify whether a task goes in the should do or the should not do bucket. If it contributes to real startup progress, you should consider doing it. And if it doesn't, then don't. This seems trivial at first. Why would anyone do anything that amounts to fake startup progress? But let me explain further. So real startup progress is when you're really focused on things that really move the needle for your startup. And in the beginning, the best way to show this is through growth, in particular growth of your primary KPI. I gave a whole lecture on this a few weeks ago on KPI and goals. If you haven't watched it yet, please watch it. I talk a lot about primary and secondary KPIs. There's always a balance between what to focus on, but for the purpose of this lecture, I'm just going to refer to the primary KPI as the thing to focus on growing. So to summarize, your primary KPI almost always is either revenue or active users, and you should always be setting weekly goals for this. To move the needle on the KPIs, the highest leverage thing you can be doing always comes in the form of tasks that involve talking to users and building and iterating your product, nothing else. This is in direct contrast with fake startup progress, which is when founders focus on things that are not directly related to growing your primary KPI. So common things I see in weekly updates are things like attending conferences, focusing on winning awards, network events, optimizing the wrong metrics. While you may convince yourself these are good things to focus on, they are actually many steps away from delivering real value to your customer. And so if all the things you could be possibly doing, spending any significant time on any of these things is almost always a bad idea. The goal is not to optimize startup vanity, but actually delivering value to your customer, doing the things that will help you directly help you increase your KPI. Now that we have one way to filter what tasks you should be working on, let's go a little bit deeper and figure out how to determine if you're prioritizing the right tasks. This at first also seems trivial. Presumably, you're doing what you believe is high-value work. I mean, nobody ever says, oh, let me do the thing that is going to help my startup the least, right? But that's what I'm going to challenge. There are hundreds of things you could be possibly working on to increase your primary KPI. Is what you're working on right now the best thing you can do to meet your weekly goal? Or have you tricked yourself into doing something else? The reason I'm skeptical is because it's actually quite easy for low-value work to unnoticeably creep into your schedule. And it actually takes a lot of work and effort to not let this happen. So here's an experiment. Try journaling in great detail of each day in the past week, every single hour, so hour by hour, what is it that you were exactly doing? And be honest on what you thought the impact was before you actually did it and what it was in increasing your primary KPI. I think you'll be surprised by how much of it was actually low value work. And the reason is not because you're lazy, or I hope not. It's more because we tend to be, as humans, on autopilot. So we don't give much thought to what we're doing with our time. And our natural instinct is actually to go for low value work because it's usually the easiest and quickest thing to accomplish. And it fulfills our desires to check as many things off of a list as possible. It feels really good to check things off. So, but once you're aware of this, preventing it is actually quite simple, but it does take time, thought, and discipline. So first, if you aren't already, you should keep a spreadsheet of ideas that can move your primary KPI. And not to be too repetitive, but these tasks are almost always a variant of two things, right? One, talking to users, and two, building product. Talking to users helps you with three things, right? It converts them into customers and revenue, or helps you convert them into customers and revenue. It helps you understand if you're on the right track or not. And it helps you figure out if your product, it helps you figure out your product roadmap. And then building product actually delivers a solution to the user to see if it actually translates into more customers and revenue. So as you come up with these ideas, you should log them into your spreadsheet and keep doing that as every idea you get. But the key is don't do them right away. Just write them down. And this is important because always switching to the thing you just thought of, which always sounds better now than later, causes a ton of whiplash for founders. And it's a primary culprit in making no progress during the week. So now you're tracking this list. Then once a week, go through each item in your spreadsheet and grade the new and regrade the old items based on how impactful you think the task would be on achieving the weekly goal for your primary KPI. There are 3 grades you can give to each task on your list: high, medium, low. These definitions are a little arbitrary in the sense that it's all relative to whatever else is on your list. But in general, high means it's a task you believe that will help you meet your goal for the week with high probability. Medium is you're not sure, but with okay probability you can hit your weekly goal. And low is with very low probability. You'll see that it's actually pretty easy to figure out what those low and high value tasks are when you compare them against everything else you could be doing, which is why this exercise, no matter how pedantic it is important to do. So let me go through an example. Let's say I'm the founder of a SaaS software, generic SaaS software company. My goal for the next week, and I just kind of launched, and my goal for the next week is just to get 5 new paying customers. So here's just a sliver of things I can do to reach that goal. At the top, you'll see that the most impactful thing I can do is go to the offices of 10 potential customers who were actually introduced to me by friends or whoever. I know that if I show up to the office, I have a very good chance, just from my experience, I have a very good chance of convincing them to buy my product. And so that's why that's at the top of the list. The next few are of medium impact because they involve me filling up my pipeline, which is one step away from landing new customers, but necessary to do. I also have the second thing here, I also have video demos I can do, which for me aren't as effective as doing in person, but worth doing as well because they do lead to some new customers. You'll notice that there are a couple items at the bottom of this, which involve programming. So a very common mistake technical founders make is to build things first and then go talk to users. And according to this list, to meet my weekly goal, this means they would be choosing the least impactful thing to do for that week. But with this method, if they're honest about it, they have no choice but to get off their butt and go talk to users instead. So along with the impact that it may have on your helping you achieve your weekly goal, we also need to consider a second dimension of how complex the task is. That is, how long would it take for you and your team to complete it? Because there are many tasks within each category of impact, for example, there's like 4 of here in medium and 3 in low. And sort of the question is, how do I stack rank those within that category? And so this dimension of complexity helps. So we can grade complexity in 3 ways: easy, medium, and hard. So an easy task is something that you can do in less than a day. That means you can do a bunch of easy tasks in a day. A medium task is something that takes 1 or 2 days for you to do. And a hard task is one that takes many days to do, and you may not complete it within the week. So once you go grade all of them, you'll have, again, the second dimension here, where you have impact, and then also complexity. And so now you can easily stack rank all the tasks in your list, and it's pretty easy to choose what you should prioritize. So given the objective is to hit your weekly goal, the obvious choice is always to go something with to go for the combos of high easy combos and high medium. That is a task that has high impact and is easy to do. You should always do those first, and then go to high impact and medium complexity. And what you really don't want to do is focus on these bottom things here, right? Something that has probably very low probability in helping you achieve your goal and is very hard to do. Takes a long time to do. There's really no point in doing any of those things. So just as important as selecting the right task to work on is making sure you don't try to do everything at once. Pick enough tasks that you can complete and do well. Doing too many things means you won't be able to complete much of the task with much conviction, and makes it really hard to show progress from week to week. How do I know I am prioritizing my time well? Ultimately, you know you've done well if you're hitting your weekly goals consistently. So you're doing well if your graphs look like that. Sadly, most of us have graphs that look like this. These troughs of sorrow, where it's decreasing and you're kind of like stable for a while at the bottom, that's when you start doubting yourself. Is like, am I working really on the right thing or not? And so what can we do about this, or how do we know? So one way is to do what you're already doing in startup school, which is writing weekly updates and being really consistent and honest about it. So the key components of weekly update is pretty straightforward. What was your weekly goal? Did you succeed? If not, what was the biggest blocker to the growth? What did you do? And what was the predicted impact, and what was the actual impact? And what did you learn this week? What were the big learnings this week? And then by doing an ongoing evaluation of your weekly updates, it will help you improve how you select and prioritize tasks. Once in a while, you should review all your weekly updates, like from beginning, the first one you ever wrote for your startup to the current one, to the last one. And check for things like, do you feel like you're learning fast enough? Are you predicting the impact of each task well? Did you let low-value work, or even worse, fake progress, creep into your schedule? Is your biggest blocker the same thing for every week? A lot of people actually get in a rough spot where they're not learning anything new and just doing the same thing over and over without realizing it. Reviewing your updates will help you realize that and will force you to try to get yourself out of that bad loop. This last one, in terms of completing tasks, if you're finding yourself always running out of time to complete tasks you felt was totally possible to complete in the week, I have two suggestions for you. One is perhaps your task is actually too complex, and you should break it down into medium and easy tasks. The second one is maybe it is that your schedule needs to be rejiggered a little bit. I recommend a modified version of what we call the Maker's Manager schedule, which was popularized by Paul Graham. The essay is linked in the Startup School library. The basic idea is this: there are high context switching costs to different types of tasks. For example, coding and meetings like talking to users. Meaning it's hard to restart and ramp back up on a task, especially like coding, and it's costly to exit at a time when things are finally flowing and you're getting stuff done. So if you find yourself switching back and forth too much, it may be that you're wasting time and need to rejigger things so you have a continuous chunk of time devoted to each one. So many people will actually divide their week into days, right? So one full day they'll just spend coding, and then the next full day they'll spend meetings and talking to users and so forth, instead of having like 1 hour here, 1 hour there, 1 hour there. For people who need to get more stuff done in the day, then they'll do half the day they'll spend coding, and then half the day they'll spend talking to users. So this is, for any solo founders out there, this is incredibly important for you because you don't have the opportunity to divvy up the work across multiple people. So it's really important to get your schedule correct. All right, so I'll end with one final piece of advice, which is moving fast. So in the beginning of your startup, your primary objective is to move as quickly as possible to prove that you're building something people want. The faster you figure this out, the faster you can pivot into something or have the confidence that you have product market fit and can start scaling and building a tremendous business. So making decisions thoughtfully and quickly is super important. Time is often wasted in indecisiveness. The key is to be okay with making a wrong choice and learning fast. So of course, choosing the right thing to do at the get-go is the best thing possible. But it's also the case that a person who chooses the wrong task to work on today, but moves quickly, learns why it's wrong, and moves to the right one is better off than the person that takes forever to choose the right tasks to work on and is twiddling their thumbs working on low-value stuff in the meantime. That's all I have today on how to prioritize time. To summarize, what you should be doing, always be working on things that directly impact your primary KPI. Do the things that have the highest impact to meeting your weekly goal. And that usually always means what? Talking to users and building product.
Okay. Couple of things, they're oriented to perhaps software startups, technical startups. I would substitute talking to users. I would say talking to customers or talking to prospects if you're selling a product. That's just one editorial. But I thought it was interesting that she had a line through a sentence that said, enjoying the ego of being a business owner or startup owner. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur these days. And a lot of activity is really not particularly on point. So I think we're all guilty of that. I know I certainly am. I'd much rather do something fun and easy than something hard and slow. So I know I'm not alone on that. Samantha, what do you think about this idea of prioritizing your time?
Yeah, I really like it. I would like, I did have a question. I couldn't get all the weekly update things about the KPIs, active versus goal, the biggest obstacle. So if somebody else can help me with the third one, and then the fourth one was weekly learnings.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, what I've always, or what's becoming popular now is batching. A lot of it is just sort of batching your workload and doing, so you don't have that changing, she said, there's all that, you lose some of the momentum and that energy. It takes effort to chop and change. But I also find that the muse only comes at certain times and you cannot schedule the muse. So I have a lot of pieces of paper all over my house with ideas of things that I try to organize in order to create a task list, I guess, in order to move the business forward.
Did you find her suggestion to put all that in a spreadsheet? In the same place all the time where you can kind of keep track of it? Would that be helpful?
I've tried to work with that. I had an Excel sheet, an Agile sort of thing that somebody tried to get me onto. I'm still pretty old school. I'm still pen and paper, I'm afraid. I haven't moved into the 21st century yet.
Okay. Well, one thing you might try doing is voice recorders. You can talk into your idea even into your phone with a voice recorder. And you can save that on your computer and access that too. That's a whole different ballgame. But I tend to do that a lot because it's easier than trying to find a damn pen that works, at least in my case.
Thank you.
So we've got Gloria Jinks here today. Hi, Gloria. I don't think we've met before. Do you want to take a second and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Gloria. Let's see if I can get my camera.
There you are.
I've been on some of the sessions. I wasn't able to get up here yesterday, but yeah, I'm fairly new to the entrepreneur and opening my business, and so I don't have everything in place yet, but that's what I'm working towards. But all of this information here, I've been going back and looking at the trainings and actually doing it on the weekend so I can actually take notes. And it's been very helpful with breaking it down. And I've actually gone back a couple of times and had to change stuff and update stuff. So I'm learning quite a bit from the sessions.
What is your business? What kind of business are you working with?
So I had a have a bakery business that I've just been doing just from home, and now I'm expanding, and so I'm expanding to the ice cream. So we'll be doing rolled ice cream and the bakery, and so now I'm just trying to branch out and figure out the best way to branch out, how I need to position myself, and so that's why I'm taking these classes and seeing what's the best option for me.
Oh, fantastic. Cake and ice cream. It sounds like a popular, a popular thing to offer. So thank you. Thank you for telling us. Anyone else want to volunteer about prioritizing time? Any little tricks that you have or ways that you go about slaying this dragon that we all have one way or the other? Come on, Kaim. I always call on you because for some reason, you're always up on my screen, so I'm sorry.
It's all good. No, I'm kind of like Samantha. I'm old school. I do take notes, but I have a spiral binder, and honestly, it's basically sectioned off. Part of it's for the class that I'm taking notes, and the other part's for ideas. The other part's for contacts. So we try to make this, but keep it all in one place. The other thing that is essential to me is my calendar and my phone. If it's not there, it's probably not getting done. And here and every day or every evening, I'll take a look at what's on my list for tomorrow. What events are coming up? What do I need? Do we need samples? Do we need product? What is it that we've got to have to make that done? And then work that. And then the next morning, I work from the hardest thing to the easiest thing, because if I can get the hardest thing out of the way, the rest of the day is a piece of cake. So I always start with the worst case scenario. Let's get that knocked out, and everything else works a lot smoother for me. But here again, it's taking time to figure this process out. I like to work the easy because I wanted to check everything off. Well, now I realize that, the easy things really don't matter if the hard thing didn't get done. Yeah. So let's get that done first. We can knock that out first thing in the morning and then get right back into our day. So
thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's very helpful. Raymond, Ray is a former CEO of thousands and thousands of employees. So I think he might have some good insights here that he can share with us.
Well, a lot of my career has been in turning around financially distressed companies, and her comments on decisiveness are critical. You don't ever have time to sit and play. Just make a decision, and maybe tomorrow you realize you've made a total mistake and you have to do a 180-degree spin. But that's the great thing about being small, is you can make a 180-degree spin and go, I've screwed up. So if I use an example with our own company right now, we made a focus originally to grow within one large retailer, big box retailer, and we in the process of doing that, we're successful. We said we're going to backdoor in, come in through their local vendor program, and build our way up to where they go, okay, yeah, you guys deserve to be a corporate vendor. Well, in the process of doing that, I ended up stretching myself so thin as the person that's having to go around to 20-some different stores in 5 states, and the cash outflow in doing that is extremely high, and the time conflict extremely high. And so we had to make a decision and say, well, we'll do this, but this can't possibly be how we do business in the future. And thus the appeal to us of working with more local stores that maybe aren't big chain names, and we're going to have to work harder to get the local stores, but we don't have the expense of driving all over the place. And then we have to master this online video conferencing and using people like RangeMe to reach out and get appointments where we get accepted by a chain, and we make one distribution shipment to one place, and they're the ones doing all the runaround. So that's a lesson learned for us, that we're in the process of turning the battleship now, and but to meet the lessons learned on it.
Yeah, I think your point about spinning 180, you might only be spinning 45 or spinning 90. It isn't always necessarily a complete reversal. It's just the ability to decide and try stuff. Along in Ray's case, he just illustrated his try involved a lot of money and a lot of time, but some tries might not be that way. They might have other things that you have to deal with. But I think the key there is making decisions fast.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah, please.
Sometimes you get you have to pay attention to what she was talking about with the challenges and the obstacles too. So, for instance, when we started looking at Range Me, some of our biggest opportunity, because we're a veteran-owned, veteran-operated company, is in what they call inclusiveness campaigns for product. Well, we came to learn that I can't bid on most of those because we don't have a certification as a veteran-owned company. Well, to get the certification of the veteran-owned company, I run into a roadblock where you have to scan in a copy of your driver's license. Well, my driver's license is worn, so I have to get a new driver's license so that it will take to go into that. So it's the old, for want of a nail, the shoe was lost; for want of a shoe, the horse was lost kind of thing. And so sometimes those things that she's saying, well, are what's high impact, easy. Well, it's become, I got to get a driver's license, which is like pulling teeth. We're talking a multi-week event, bogging down our ability to bid on being able to sell thousands of dollars of product. So,
wow. Yeah, it's as my old business partner used to say, it's always something. So, a couple things I wanted to cover off with everybody, and I will post this video in the Facebook group for those of you who want to watch it again, because I know it's not in our resource. I haven't quite figured out how to add to that. In talking with Ashley Nolan, some of you brought up yesterday some things that you felt she was doing well. So I posted that in the Facebook group, her response as to what equipment she uses. And I had to chuckle because just by happenstance, that's the same ring light that I use. So I was amazed at that I guessed right and got one. And but those are they're not really expensive, and they do make a difference. And you can play around. The one that she recommended, the one that I have, has about 10 different brightnesses. You just hit a button, and it also has like a warm setting and a cold setting, all this kind of stuff. So I think that was helpful. The other thing she told me about, and I knew that she was trying to get to 1,000 followers on Pop Shop Live, and she had told me that Pop Shop Live was going to give her some money for that. But I didn't realize, but it was $10,000, which is not insignificant. So she got a $10,000 check from Pop Shop Live once she hit 1,000 followers. So just wanted to share that for what it's worth. That's and I don't know if they have reached out to some of you who are active on Pop Shop. They have not reached out to me, so I'm going to just check with them and see if this is across the board, or they just did that for Ashley for some unknown reason. I don't know, but I'm hoping it is across the board. So I thought that was helpful, and I do see some of our folks are continuing to go live on Pop Shop Live. So any war stories that you want to share about it, wide open. I think the group will benefit. Once we get through the branding piece, we're going to start focusing on how do you do the live streaming and what are my options. I think some of you are going to do really well with that format. And so we do want to spend some time on that, because I think the conversion rates are quite a bit higher than on a regular website. So we want to try to encourage that if we can. I think that's all I have for today. I know it's a little bit short, but that's what I have. I will post this link in our Facebook group so you can have that. The Y Combinator has over 800, no, it's over 1,000 videos that they have in their YouTube channel. So I'll post a link to that too if you want to scroll through that and see all the things that they offer. Chris, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I found this very timely because I'm in a place in my business where I'm really struggling with the transition from being the maker to being the team leader and doing the business stuff, which is really hard for me. It's not what I love to do, but I continue to try not to beat myself up that it takes me a while and I'm slow at it, and I try to put it off some of those things because they don't come easy. So what Raymond was talking about, I'm sure he has some great wisdom in that department from the sounds of what he's done. And to Samantha, I don't know if anyone has ever used Trello, because I'm definitely a note taker, and I'm looking at my desk now and it's just like I have pieces of paper everywhere. And Trello is kind of like that. I've used it a little bit in the past, but maybe for people that are more like list makers like myself, that might be a non-paper way to help you.
Yeah, I think you start, it's not going to be a smooth transition where you go from what you've always done to something new like Trello, or there's other programs like that. Even Notepad, just regular Notepad is on most people's computer. But you just start, right? And that can be one of your to-dos, to put 5 things on Trello today. It doesn't have to be automatic, and don't beat yourself up, because I think, Chris, you've done a great job building your business, and actual business processes. You get to a certain point, you can hire people to do this crap that you don't like, right? So you'll get there. It's not everybody is an accountant. I used to tell my friends, and I am not an accountant. I promise you that. So, or a business process person. So it's okay if it makes you uncomfortable. And if you have to do it at this point, that's just the way it is. But know that if you continue to grow, you will be in a position where you have somebody actually do that stuff for you. Anyway. All right. Well, anyone else want to have anything to contribute at this point? Otherwise, I'm going to bid you adieu until Monday, and hope you have if you are doing a show or any kind of event this weekend, I hope it goes well. And if anybody has any thoughts, questions, learnings, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk whenever I have a chance, and to be helpful. So that's it. Thank you all